Father Cowles is back in the studio with me. Yes, we have Father Kristopher Cowles here, who is the director, I'm going to get it right this time, the director of the St. Thomas More Newman Center in Vermilion on the USC
At the University
campus.
of South Dakota campus.
Yes.
It's a mouthful.
I missed that part the last time.
It's a mouthful.
It is. Welcome back.
Thank you
You
very
really
much.
didn't leave. I mean, as we record these, of course, we record them all at one time. So you really didn't leave.
You're not supposed to tell them the secret?
We removed the veil long
you
ago.
did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're like, why is he wearing the same clothes
Exactly,
again?
and I do too.
That makes no sense.
There was
It's
a
like,
little while where I would go, I'd be like, no, I have to change because
Would you really?
I did, and then I'm like, oh, this is silly.
She just wears
Plus-
the outfit the
plus-
same time
yes.
every week
Right.
at that same time.
Right.
Yeah.
And plus, Bill gave me a lot of grief about it. So
You laugh though, but most priests, most of us just wear the same thing
Right,
every
right,
single
so
day.
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't make that big of a difference.
all right, so we are going to talk to Father Cowles about his call to the priesthood. I have a feeling it will be interesting. I hope. If it's not, then you're going to find a way to make it interesting.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I'll do my best.
All right. So, will you tell us first a little bit about your family, where you grew up? that kind of good
Excellent.
stuff?
Well, I'm the youngest of 5 kids, born and raised in Yankton, South Dakota.
Okay.
Go Bucks. And this would be the same town as Father Andrew Dickinson,
Yes.
who is also a Buck to his core, and Matt Altoff, who also wanted to do that
that's
shout out.
right.
Yes.
Yes.
So youngest of 5, from a very early age, I was deeply fascinated with Legos, but also I went with my mom to daily mass on a regular basis.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I went to daily mass is I had 2 choices growing up. One of them was to ride the bus with some kids who I thought smelled bad. I'm not going to say who they were. And that was also standing outside in the cold in the middle of
Right,
winter.
right.
I wasn't walking uphill both ways.
No one liked to ride the bus.
Yeah, I didn't like riding the bus. Or I could ride with my mom and go with her to daily mass. And
Okay.
she was super holy and still is. So she'd bring me to mass. So I grew up going to daily mass and watching the mass take place. So at a very young age, like 7 years old, I had thought during my first grade year that I was going to dress up as a priest for like vocation day. And it was largely because we had really cool priests growing up in Yankton. I still remember Father Jerry Ronick, who I now live with of all things, being our priest at that
You
time.
just made him feel really old. I'm sorry,
I know.
Father Ronick.
Well, he feels old all the time. It's okay. And a lot of these other priests who just had a profound effect in my life, whether it be Father Jim Bream, Father Mark Lichter later on, Father John Fisher, all of them I just looked up to so much.
Right.
And I thought, wow, it'd be cool to be a priest.
Right.
So I thought about that. And then I had chicken pox the week, so no one found out that I was going to dress up as a priest. And number 2, right around 2nd grade, I all of a sudden discovered that girls didn't have cooties. And they were actually
2nd grade? That's
I know,
early.
I know. What do you do?
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I maxed out height-wise 6th grade in 6th grade.
I think
So
that happens with guys.
it-
well, no,
No, it
probably
doesn't
not. No,
typically.
it's usually later. You're
It
right.
hit really
Girls max
early
out at
on.
6th grade.
Yeah, I maxed out with the girls. I hit my growth spurt early. So I discovered things earlier, and that's okay. That's okay.
Right.
Which meant I didn't want to pursue the priesthood at that point because I wanted to hopefully get married and have a big family. The family I usually say is I wanted to have a wife, about 12 kids, and then a good job. But God decided to spare that wife that ordeal and make me go into the priesthood.
So did you have a plan before you decided to go to seminary? Were you like going to be something else?
Yeah, I was set on being an engineer.
Okay.
So that's where the Lego part comes in. So
Sure.
I loved Legos. I loved building and designing things. In Yankton, we had an incredible science Olympiad team
Okay.
where we would build or design or do chemistry, any number of things. And I love music as well. All of that played into that. And I was able to use that science aspect of my background while I was in school.
Right.
So all that being said, I was set at like 6th grade. When I maxed out at 6th grade, I decided that I wanted to go to School of Mines. My sister had already gone there many, many years before.
My husband went there.
Awesome.
My brother went there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So I went there for mechanical engineering, and then as time went on, I also added a mathematics double major.
Okay.
So I was a super nerd.
Yeah.
Um,
You were.
I was.
Wait,
I was.
what? Maybe you still are.
Depends on the day.
Okay.
But most of the time I am. And that was my deepest desire, was hopefully to become an engineer and find my wife.
Sure.
Now, gotta be honest, it's difficult looking for a wife on the School of Mines campus.
Yes, it is.
Because of the 5 guy to 1 lady ratio. So
My husband was fortunate he already had me at the time, so he
Sounds
didn't have
very
to worry
fortunate.
about that.
yeah. And most girls who go to the School of Mines know, like, they need to either find a boyfriend ahead of time or be looking for one when they get there, because otherwise there's
Really
guys
like
all
nerds.
around them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nerds are good.
They
Let me
typically
just say.
are.
Yes.
They typically are.
So how did you get your call to the priesthood? Because you thought about it when you were young. So something happened at School of Mines?
Yes.
Okay.
Something happened actually in that year at School of Mines.
Okay.
So before I even got in my dorm room, I ran into a priest with my parents at that time, who was Father Brian Christensen, an awesome priest of the Rapid City Diocese. And he was out there wearing his priest clothing, but also with like a Newman Center shirt over the top of it. And he was helping move students in. So he grabbed my mini fridge and sought to carry it to my room, but got lost along the way and went up an extra floor and carried it down a whole nother hallway and then made his way into my room finally. And I was like, wow, this priest has got some muscles and he's not afraid to like put in some work. So he earned my respect right away. They told me mass times. My mom's like, oh, good. My son knows when the mass is. This is great. And it was like 6 blocks away.
Right.
So the Newman Center at that time was a garage that had been converted to a chapel.
Yes.
And a house.
Okay. What year was this? Because I wonder if
This was in 2003.
Oh, we had already moved away out of Rapid City. I lived in Rapid City until 2002.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you got out of the way so that I could come in.
Yes.
That's
my
great.
husband got out of the way so you could come in.
Yeah.
Because he was at School of Mines at the time. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Just missed you. Dang it.
There you go.
So
but started going to the Newman Center.
Mm-hmm.
And truthfully, I got to be honest, I had mixed motives.
Okay.
So I went to the Newman Center because they said that they had free food. So that's a big thing in college life, free food.
Right.
I know that to the core. And then the other one was, what a better place to look for your hopefully future wife than in a place where there's people who are practicing their faith and going to the Newman Center and things like that. So I kind of went there looking for food and for a spouse.
That is not a bad plan.
Surprisingly did find food and a spouse at the Newman Center, but not the one I expected.
Not at all.
So started going there, gained a lot of respect for the priestry in that time, went on a fall retreat. And the fall retreat was focused on listening to the voice of God in the midst of scriptures. So we were praying, doing Lectio Divina, and it was awesome. We went off into the Black Hills, had a retreat. It was wonderful. Had a really profound confession during that time and really began to get more and more involved in praise and worship music and prayer. And then as we were coming back, like I noticed that last step, which was called contemplatio or contemplation, was like when you listen and really seek to listen to the voice of God. And I didn't hear God speak. And I was like, God, say something to me. And please speak with me and say something. And then finally, at the very end, I asked a question that is profound and deep, and I didn't think I would get a response to. It is, God, what do you want from me? What do you want me to do? And I'm sitting in chapel, and as the priest is raising up the host during the Mass, I hear the Lord say, I want you to go to seminary. Any idea what my response was?
Probably the same as a lot of priests. No way.
No. And then I started to cry because there was a girl right next to me from Black Hills State that I had a huge crush on and thought maybe this could work out. It didn't. It didn't. I was a nerd and socially awkward and many other things. So that didn't go the way I had planned. But I struggled for the longest time because I felt like the Lord was calling me to go to seminary. Not necessarily priesthood, but at least to discern a call. Right. So I was discerning in that time and just kind of put it on the back burner. Continue to go to adoration, continue to pray. And then that January, we got the chance to go to a Focus conference. Okay. So this is in like the 4th or 5th year Focus. They had a big conference in Denver. This is before Seek or SLS started. And in that conference, just had a profound experience of God. That year was the year that The Passion of the Christ came out. So we had a preview screening of it.
Oh, wow.
And then Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus, this was the very first time he gave a keynote address and spoke of his personal experience of playing Jesus, which was really profound. I remember during that conference, I made a personal promise that I was going to pray a rosary every single day during the course of Lent, and that I was going to really try to overcome sinful behaviors in my life and really put the Lord first. And it was amazing. Like, I really began to grow in a profound way. So as time went on, that same priest, Father Brian, pulled me aside and said, Chris, why aren't you thinking about becoming a priest? And I came up with all my regular excuses. The first one was pretty straightforward. It was, well, I thought that if I go to seminary, there's going to be people waiting inside the door to basically lock it and padlock me to a bed and make sure I don't leave until I become a priest. And he's like, no, that's not how it works.
Right.
If you're called to be a priest when you go there, awesome. If you're not, you're going to come out a better man, a better Christian, and hopefully a better father and husband.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's awesome. So you're saying I'm going to be more available and like the ladies will like me more? No, that's what I was thinking. I didn't say it out loud, but that's what I was thinking.
The right ladies.
Yeah,
Yes.
the right ladies. The second one was, this is like a year or 2 years of my life. My time's valuable, Father. Don't you understand that? He's like, the Lord gave you your whole life, right? Whole life? Yeah. You can't give him a year or two?
Right.
Well,
I
you
give
put
him
it
every
that
Sunday.
way.
What do you want from me?
Yeah.
Right?
And then the last one was, I didn't feel worthy.
Oh,
That was the biggest thing. I didn't feel worthy to become a priest. Every priest that I encountered up to that time was just so amazing and awesome. And I thought, I can't be who they are. They have such a gift and they're holy. I'm still a nerd who plays with Legos when I get the chance. I'm not that, and watches cartoons and a number of things. But he says, you know what? And this was a phrase I think that was inspired by him. He had said, had I been a married man and had a family, I would trust you to be the pastor of my family.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, no one's ever trusted me that much. And because I'd grown so much in respect for him, realized that he had actually been a bomber pilot for the Air Force for years, all this other stuff, I was like, I should really think about this.
Right.
So I dragged my feet during the summer, but the Lord still worked it out. He got my applications in. I got accepted to the seminary. I went through the psychological evaluation. They didn't say I was crazy. They let me in, all of that stuff. And I get to seminary. Now, seminary was good, but it was hard. It was hard in a number of ways. Like I said, I was a socially awkward nerd. And they pointed that out to me at one point in time. And as possibly, it was somewhat charitable. But think of it this way. So the goal of seminary is to make you into the image of Jesus.
Right.
And in making you into the image of Jesus, typically people use like a chisel and break off little chunks of the marble as they're molding you and fashioning you into the image of Jesus. My formator, the priest in charge of me, decided to use a sledgehammer because he thought it would move along quicker, I think.
That didn't work?
It did in the long run, but it hurt a lot
Yes.
at the very beginning.
Yeah.
We went for a walk one day, and he was like, so Kristopher, I've been talking with the rector, and he thinks that we should talk about some stuff. You're kind of awkward, and you need to lose some weight. And it was like this laundry list of things that I need to work on, and I didn't understand why he was saying it and what his goal was. I didn't really understand his mission. So at that point, I just thought, he's picking on me. What's going on? And I'd call home and tell my dad about this, and he'd be like, oh, if I was you, I'd just leave. I was like, thanks, Dad. I really appreciate that strong fatherly support right now. But I'd talk with my spiritual director, Father Ken Lolf, and he'd say, just keep pushing. Just keep pushing through. Funny enough, years later, Father Ken told me, it was like, you were the one who I least expected to become a priest of the ones I directed. And that comes up from time to time.
I bet it does.
In which I'm like, see, the Lord can do a lot with very little.
He is amazing in his abilities.
He is. He is. So I pushed through and began to really accept, like, I needed to grow in these areas. So I had a couple of summers on Totus Tuus that aided me to grow in leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
To begin to realize, like, I love teaching. I love spending time with kids. I loved youth ministry. And I loved sharing the gospel with others. And that, I could work with people. I had to work on some things, but I began to work on them intensively and in a very focused way. So my second year of seminary was just kind of receiving the formation that people wanted to give me. And everyone's like, just stay the course. You might not yet be called to be a priest, but just continue to receive what they want to give you. So my third year, this would be my senior year of college, I got the chance to do a study abroad semester.
Ooh.
And so we went to Rome, which was awesome, and visited Spain, did part of the Camino of Santiago de Compostela, went to Ireland for a little bit. But it was not so much the city as it was just the environment of Catholic studies at that time through the University of St. Thomas campus. So we had men and women who were there, all of us seeking to find what God desired for us.
Right.
All of us sincerely open to the will of God, praying on a regular basis, having deep conversations, going on trips, all this sort of stuff. And the professor we had at that time, Dr. Naughton, was doing a course on vocations. And in the midst of that class, we really began to discover that there were so many ways that the lay vocation could be expressed, but also the priestly vocation. And in the midst of that time, it overcame that final impediment, that final thing that was blocking me to becoming a priest, which was, I'll become a priest, but I'm going to be a miserable priest. And that idea was because I thought that I had to give up everything.
Oh, right.
I couldn't have a wife. I couldn't have kids. I couldn't have a normal job. All these things that I dreamed of for years. And letting go of those was like, yeah, I'm willing to do this noble sacrifice for the good of others, but I didn't see myself as being happy in that life. But they began to reveal in this class, like, if this is what God is calling you to, this is where you're going to find the most happiness. And what I began to do is shift my perspective, not focusing on the sacrifices, but on the gifts that I would receive.
Right.
And that's when everything changed.
That's huge.
So in that moment, I was like, no, I don't get to get married, which is a real sacrifice because I desire to share my life in this way. But I will give myself completely to the church, which is also a gift. The second one, no, I won't have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 12 as I desired kids.
Right.
I'll have hundreds or thousands of them. I'll play with them, enjoy their presence, and then hand them back to their parents. Hopefully not after riling them up.
Come on.
I've learned over the years not to do that.
Good.
Especially in classrooms at Catholic schools. No teacher despises you as much as when you walk in, rile them up, and just leave them that way.
Here comes Father Cowles. Oh no.
So I've learned.
Good.
And then the last one was, you don't have a normal job. You really have a supernatural job.
Yeah.
I mean, there are moments when I'm holding the Eucharist in my hands and realize just a second ago this was a piece of bread. And now because of God's power working through me, it has become Jesus himself.
Right.
I'm holding the center of the universe.
Yeah.
I remember the first confession I heard after becoming a priest. I don't know if the person who was receiving confession or I were crying more in that moment because I realized God just redeemed this soul through me.
Right.
This person just received this. And the other experience is when I was at Our Lady of Guadalupe for the course of the 6.5 years.
Yes.
Because of who I was as a priest, I was invited so many times into people's lives. They just welcomed me as a member of their family. And I'd be in their home and enjoying food and spending time with them and say, how is it that I'm worthy of this?
Right.
This is such an incredible gift. And in those moments, I just receive it and say, thank you, Jesus, for this. And thank you for the holiness and the goodness of these people who've loved me so well.
Yeah.
So as time went on, so my resolution after that 4th year was, if they don't kick me out of seminary, I'll become a priest. And the reason I say that is because every vocation is dual discernment. It's the discernment on the part of the person, but also on the part of the church.
Right.
The church has to decide whether or not you're called to this vocation.
Yes.
And there are many times that even in those 4 years, I doubted, but I stuck to my guns. And there was one point actually in my diaconate year where before I was going to be ordained to the diaconate, that I really wanted to leave. I was going through depression and I was dealing with some major issues in my life. And I thought, I'm the last person who should be here. And it was in that time, my Bishop Paul Swain, and then also now Bishop Andrew Cousins, who was my formator at that time, said, no, this is an attack of the evil one. Stay the course.
Yep.
So I entered into the priesthood from there because they're like, there is so much good that you're going to do. Even if you don't believe it, there's so much good that you're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
And I had to trust that in that moment. Now, have I flubbed? Have I made mistakes? Oh, of course I have.
You're still human.
Yes. And I seek to apologize regularly for those mistakes that I make.
Right.
But I'm also so incredibly grateful for the priesthood.
Yeah.
And it's moments like these when I get to share that story that it reminds me of like why I did it in the first place and how the Lord is still calling me to that.
Yeah. What a great story. You make, I hope all priests feel that joy that you obviously feel from becoming a priest, because I think that's huge. If you don't, I don't know how you get through. I mean, lots of people hate their jobs, but I don't want a priest to hate his job.
No. And the thing is, if you don't see it as a vocation, it's very different. But the same thing is true of how many marriages.
Yeah, that's very true.
How many marriages lose that joy over time because they stop choosing to love the person that they're with.
Right.
And when that love is no longer there, it's very hard to continue that on.
Yeah.
But thanks be to God, the Lord chose me.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, I said yes.
Yeah. Good job. Okay, so we only have about a minute. Will you tell us what is the best thing your parishioners, right now, the college students that you serve? What can they do for you? What's the best thing that they can do to help you be a good priest?
That is an awesome question. One of them is obviously pray for us. That's the token answer that you get to everything. Pray for us. But to encourage me or encourage priests when you see them doing well, and when you don't see them doing well, when you see them struggling, to really ask and to see how you can help them, how you can be present to them. Because we often ask the question of how are you, but without the sincerity of heart.
Right.
Now, not every priest is going to want to share
Right.
where he's at, and that's okay. You don't have to press him and push him. But for some priests, they need to have someone who is really willing to care about them and listen to them. Because there have been times when I've struggled and I've said to people, like, this is what I'm struggling with. And they're like, oh, Father, we forget you're human.
Right.
We forget you're
Right.
real.
Yep.
We're so sorry that you're going through that.
Yeah.
Know that this is a momentary setback. Don't give in to the discouragement and keep focused.
Right.
Because you're still doing so well.
Yeah.
Those people who said that to me usually said it right at the right moment.
Right.
When I needed it most.
Right. That's great advice. I think it's so important for us to support our priests because you guys have big jobs and a lot on your shoulders. So every time now that these 2 interviews with you, we run out of time and I wish we had like 10 more minutes, but we don't.
That's
So-
good for the sake of the people listening.
No,
Because they might say,
I totally
"Oh,
disagree. Thank you so much for coming in and spending some time with me and telling us your story. It was really great.
Very glad to.
Thanks a lot, Father Cowles.
Yep.
All right. If you haven't found us on social media yet, you can find us at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube at SF Diocese. All of our radio shows, anything you hear on audio is also on video at YouTube. So come find us anytime. That's it for us today. Hope you'll join us again next week for more Catholic Views.